You know that feeling, right? When you've done something wrong and you just can't shake the guilt. It's like it's stuck on a loop in your head. Well, we've all been there. Today, we're going to dive into a perspective from a Christian devotional that tackles this very thing. We're going to unpack this idea of divine reconciliation and see how it's presented as the ultimate way to be free from blame.
All right, so first things first, let's really talk about the problem here. It's this heavy weight of blame that we all seem to carry. It's a struggle that pretty much everyone can relate to, no matter who you are or what you believe. And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We can be our own worst enemies, our own harshest critics. It's funny, we might be quick to forgive someone else, but when we're the ones who messed up, finding that same grace for ourselves can feel almost impossible.
Now, what's fascinating is how the source material sees this. It's not just a bad feeling. It's like being trapped. It literally describes people sinking into guilt, which makes it incredibly hard to move on with life. This self-blame, this is the core problem that the text is trying to solve. Okay, so to really get the solution, we have to understand what the source calls the before state. It's this idea of being alienated, not just spiritually, but in our own minds. And this verse from Colossians, it's a big one for defining that before state. The text interprets this to mean that by default, people are separated from God. But here's the kicker. It says we're enemies in your mind. That suggests our own thoughts, our own perspectives, are a huge part of the problem.
So the answer to this alienation is a huge concept: reconciliation. In this context, it's way more than just saying you're sorry. Think of it as a complete restoration of a broken relationship. It's about bringing two parties that were totally separated, humanity and God, back together as if nothing ever happened.
So how in the world does this reconciliation actually happen? Well, let's get to the turning point of this whole story. The source points to one single divine action that it says changes absolutely everything about our relationship with blame.
And here it is. This is the absolute heart of the argument in the text. It claims that God took all the blame for every human mistake, and I mean all of it, and put it on Jesus Christ. The whole point is that the responsibility for our screw-ups was completely moved away from us.
And we're not talking about a temporary fix here. The source presents this as an absolute, once-and-for-all deal. It covers everything, across all of time, mistakes from the past, the ones we make today, and even the ones we haven't made yet. It's essentially a total cancellation of our debt.
This verse from Romans is used to really drive home the consequence of that. If the blame has been moved, then condemnation, judgment, is gone. It's off the table. For the believer, this means the verdict is no longer guilty.
And that brings us to the after state. I mean, if the before was all about being alienated and blamed, then the after is a whole new identity. It's a complete 180. Just look at the difference here. It's night and day, right? On one side, you got the before, alienated, an enemy in your mind, constantly under the weight of blame. And on the other side, the after, reconciled, seen as holy and without blame, totally free from accusation. It's a complete identity shift. And here's that verse from Colossians again, this time explaining why this all happened. According to the text, the whole point of this reconciliation was, and I quote, to present you holy and unblameable and unreproveable in His sight. In other words, its sole purpose was to give you a totally clean slate in God's eyes.
The source actually uses a bunch of specific theological terms to describe this new identity. Let's break them down real quick. Justified is like being declared innocent in a court of law. Righteous means being seen as morally right. Holy and sanctified mean you're set apart for a special purpose, and glorified points to a future perfected you. Altogether, they paint this picture of a complete and total transformation. Okay, so let's tie this all together. What is the one big overarching message that this devotional wants us to walk away with when it comes to reconciliation?
This verse from 2 Corinthians is pretty much presented as the entire message in a nutshell, and the key phrase here is not imputing their trespasses. To put it simply, that means God isn't keeping score. He's not holding people's wrongdoings against them anymore.
So, the bottom line from this text is this. It's all about finality and freedom. The argument is that the debt is paid in full, that feeling of guilt is no longer required, and the core message here is about restoring a relationship, not about pointing fingers and assigning blame. And that leaves us with one last, really powerful question to think about. If, according to this perspective, divine judgment and that crushing self-blame are truly taken off the table, what does that actually change about how a person lives their life, day in and day out?